day-to-day work, I don't necessarily come into contact with people who are deaf or visually impaired in any way. But I am quite deaf myself. I wear 2 hearing aids, and things were ticking along quite nicely for a number of years. And then, as my deafness got worse, and we moved buildings a couple of years ago. We moved to Princess Buildings in the town centre, and it's been refurbished and modernised, and it's, when you first walk in, people think, oh wow, it's a lovely looking building both inside and out. But if you have a hearing impairment, hearing loss, and you wear hearing aids, it's an absolute nightmare, because it's all hard surfaces and the sound reverberates, and so I really struggled when we first moved to that building. And my immediate line managers were very supportive, and everybody in that building was meant to hot desk. Nobody had an allocated desk, which was really difficult for me because I needed somewhere in a corner really, so there was a wall at one side and at the back as well to help stop that sound bouncing around. So my line manager suggested a particular desk, which is where I sit. I'm not guaranteed that desk, so I make sure I'm in at the crack of dawn so I can get my towel on the bench, so to speak. And that works. But things got worse because it is noisy. There are no doors on the offices that we work in. And to the point where things bubbled over one day. Line manager just asked me, is everything okay? That way, bottom lip went, I thought, what's up with me? I'm a grown woman, what's going on? But I had a talk to her and told her how difficult I was finding it, and I really thought that I was going to have to give up work. She suggested me looking into access to work and put me in touch with a couple of colleagues who she thought would know a bit more about it, spoke to them, and I duly applied. Access to work is a government grant, and it's for people who are working and who may need help to stay in work or to access work. And everybody has a right to an access to work assessment. So you can ask for that assessment, and you can't be refused it if you like. You can say to your line manager, I'm going to apply for an access to work assessment, and they can't say, oh no, you're not. So I applied. It has to be applied for online, and as I say, you have to be working or trying to get into work. And I found it wasn't an easy process, but it was quite straightforward. You had to carefully read the instructions because there were a couple of processes to go through. So an initial form to fill in and give them certain information which you emailed, and then they would contact you and say, yes, we've accepted your request, and we'll send somebody out to do an assessment in your workplace. That happened, and as a result of that, the lady recommended some pieces of equipment, and as a result of that, they came back with a report for my line manager, with a list of the equipment that they were suggesting would help, and there were 3 different quotes for the cost of this equipment, and then the next part was for me to have a chat with my line manager and decide which quote, if you like, we were going to go with. And each step of the process is it's time limited, so there's a deadline for each part of the process, and if you don't do things within the time limit, then the process stops and you have to then start again. So I knew my line manager quite well, so once it got to the bit that required her input, I was quite assertive in making sure that she knew this needed to be done by a particular date, and I would highlight that for her so that she knew that had to be done, because I knew that she would miss that bit of the small print, if you like. Anyway, things happened, it went through, got the equipment, and it absolutely changed my life, working life, and my personal life too. The equipment, it's this. It's called a Roger Select. All those lights that you see, they are all a different microphone, and I can just tap one for whichever direction I want to hear the sound in. And what happens with access to work, when you're given the go-ahead, so to speak, and it all goes through, it means that the majority of the cost of any equipment is paid for by this Access to Work grant. And a very small proportion has to be paid by your employer, depending on how big the organisation is. So some organisations that are very small, they don't have a contribution to make. Access to Work will pay all of it, and the larger the organisation gets, the larger the contribution. It's still only a very small proportion of the total cost. The majority of the cost is met by Access to Work. And the difference it made to my working life, I stopped a number of years ago using a landline telephone because I couldn't hear on it. Often messages were left on the phone, and I'd have to get colleagues to take the message off for me because I couldn't make out the voice and what was being said. Part of the equipment that I got is an adapter that plugs into the phone, and this little device sits into that little docking station attached to the phone, and lo and behold, I can hear on the phone again. So I can set my own messages off, I can ring people by myself, and I've started using the landline phone loads. I couldn't wait to ring folk and say, you'll never guess who this is. So it's been brilliant in that respect. I can go into meetings now. I'd stopped going to a lot of meetings except where I had to go, just because I couldn't hear. But I have this for small meetings. I put it in the middle of the table. I tap which direction I need, and I can hear what people are saying. I also have some table mics, which for larger meetings I can situate on a table. In a room like this, it's difficult. I still need people to use microphone. but it's absolutely made a huge difference. I can use this at home as well. It has a little clip that I attach to it, which has a magnet on. And so when I go out with his nibs and we're going around the shops, he can put that on. And so if I wander off looking at something, he's always got to say is, Trish, have you seen this? And I can turn around thinking he's behind me, yeah, and he's over the other side of the shop. But it's been a fantastic piece of equipment, and the process from start to finish, I think I applied in April, and by June the equipment was delivered, and it was fantastic. I would recommend anybody to apply for access to work, and I've kept all my forms, things like that, the way that I worded things, so, and I'm happy to share that with anybody who wants it. And if anybody wants to talk about the process and how to start it, I'll be around afterwards for a short time if anybody wants to come and ask. And I also just like to mention some of the things that Michelle had said about having the assessment. I'd also have that assessment as a separate thing to access to work. And I thought I knew what I needed at home. I just needed something to stop Robert getting a headache when I needed the telly up right loud. And the assessment, when Michelle came, after the assessment I had a TV listener, so that yes, I can listen to the TV now at the level I want, and Rob can have the volume on the TV very low, but I've also got vibrating smoke alarms, which the fire brigade came and fitted. One goes under the pillow, and one goes under the cushion where I normally sit in the front room. And it's just been brilliant, because I don't have to worry now whether Robert's in or he's not. If Robert goes out anywhere, that's fine. I know that if the smoke alarm goes off and I don't have my hearing aids in, I'll hear it, it'll wake me up if I'm asleep. So things are out there. People just have to access it. And I think people often think because they work, they have to pay for everything themselves, and that can stop people, it can be a barrier. But access to work is there to help with those kinds of purchases that would help you in your working life.